Already the Rutulians deemed their man overmatched in arms before the fight began. First, rising fears are whispered to the crowd, then, gathering sound, they murmur more aloud. Now, side to side, they measure with their eyes. The champions bulk, their sinews and their size. The nearer they approach, the more is known the apparent disadvantage of their own. Turnus himself appears in public sight, conscious of fate desponding of the fight. Slowly he moves and in his altar stands, with eyes dejected and with trembling hands. And while he mutters undistinguished prayers, a livid deadness in his cheeks appears. With anxious pleasure, when Juturna viewed the increasing fright of the mad multitude, when their short sighs and thickening sobs she heard, and found their ready minds for change prepared. Dissembling her immortal form she took, came here to mean his habits and his look. A chief of ancient blood in arms well known, was his great sire and his greater son. His shape assumed amid the ranks she ran, and humoring their first motions, thus began. For shame, Rutulians, can you bear the sight of one exposed fall in single fight? Can we before the face of heaven confess our courage colder or our numbers less? View all the Trojan host, the Arcadian band, and Tuscan army, counting them as they stand. Undaunted to the battle if we go, scarce every second man will share a foe. Turnus, 'tis true, in his unequal strife, shall lose with honor his devoted life, or change it rather for immortal fame, succeeding to the gods from whence he came. But you, a servile and inglorious band, for foreign lords shall sow your native land. Those fruitful fields your fighting fathers gained, which have so long their lazy sons sustained. With words like these she carried her design. A rising murmur runs along the line. Even the city troops and legions tired with tedious war seem with new souls inspired. Their champions' fate with pity they lament, and of the league so lately sworn repent. nor fails the goddess to foment the rage with lying wonders and a false presage, but adds a sign which, present to their eyes, inspires new courage and a glad surprise. For, certain in the fiery tracts above, appears in pomp the imperial bird of Jove. A plump of foal he spies that swim the lakes, and o'er their heads his sounding pinions shakes. Then stooping on the fairest of the train, in his strong talons thrust the silver swan. The Italians wonder at the unusual sight, but while he lacks and labors in his flight, behold the dastard foe return anew, and with united force the foe pursue. Clamorous around the royal hall they fly, and thickening in cloud o'ershade the sky. They cuff, they scratch, they cross his airy course, nor can the encumbered birds sustain their force, but vexed and not vanquished drops the pontoon's prey, and lightened of his burden wings his way. The Ausonian bands with shouts salute the sight, eager of action and demand the fight. Then King Tumlunius, versed in Orcus' arts, cries out and thus his boasted skill imports. At length 'tis granted what I long desired. This is what my frequent vows require. Ye gods, I take your omen and obey. Advance, my friends, and charge, I lead the way. These are the foreign foes whose empires band, like that rapacious bird, infest our land. But soon, like him, they shall be forced to see, by strength united, and forego the prey. Your timely succor to your country bring, haste to the rescue and redeem your king. Latinus, frighted, hastens from the fray, and bears his unregarded gods away. These on their horses walk, those yoke the core, the rest with swords on high run headlong to the war. Messapus, eager to confound the peace, spurred his hot courser through the fighting priests. At King Aulestus by his purple known, a Tuscan prince, and by his regal crown, and with a shock encountering, bore him down. Backward he fell, and as his fate designed, the ruins of an altar were behind. There, pitching on his shoulders and his head, amid the scattering fires, he lay supinely spread. The beamy spear descending from above, his courage pierced and through his body drove. Then with a scornful smile the victor cries, The gods have found a fitter sacrifice. Greedy of spoils, the Italians stripped the dead of his rich armor and uncrowned his head. Priest Æneid warmed his better hand from his own altar with a blazing brand. And as Ebusus with a thundering pace advanced to battle, dashed it on his face. His bristly beard shines out with sudden fires. The crackling crop a noisome scent expires. Following the blow, he seized his curling crown. With his left hand his other cast him down. The prostrate body with his knees he pressed, and plunged his whole poniard in his breast. While Posterity with his sword pursued, the shepherd outshoots the flying crowd. Swiftly he turns and aims a deadly blow, full on the front of his unweary foe. The broad axe enters with a crashing sound, and cleaves the chin with one continued wound. Warm blood and mingled brains besmears his arm around, and iron sleep his stupid eyes suppress, and seal their heavy lids in endless rest. But good Æneid rushed amid the bands. Bare was his head and naked were his hands. In sign of truce, when this he cries aloud, what sudden rage, what new desire of blood, inflames your altered minds, O Trojans, cease from impious arms, nor violate the peace. By human sanctions and by laws divine, the terms are all agreed, the war is mine. Dismiss your fears and let the fight ensue. This hand alone shall right the gods and you. Our injured altars and their broken vow, to this avenging sword the faithless Turnus owe. Thus, while he spoke, unmindful of defense, a winged arrow struck the pious prince. But whether from some human hand it came, or hostile god is left unknown by fame. No human hand or hostile god was found to boast the triumph of so base a wound. When Turnus saw the Trojan quit the plain, his chiefs dismayed, his troops a fainting train. The unhopped event his heightened soul inspires. At once his arms and coursers he requires. Then with a leap his lofty chariot gains, and with a ready hand assumes the reins. He drives impetuous, and wherever he goes, he leaves behind a lane of slaughtered foes. These his lance reaches, over those he rolls, his rapid core and crushes out their souls. In vain the vanquished fly, the victor sends the dead men's weapon at their living friends. Thus on the banks of Hebrews, freezing flood, the god of battles in his angry mood, clashing his sword against his brazen shield, let loose the reins and scours along the field. Before the wind his fiery coursers fly, groans the sad earth, resounds the rattling sky. Wrath, terror, treason, tumult, and despair, dire faces and deformed, surround the core. Friends of the god and followers of the war, with fury not unlike nor less disdain, exulting Turnus flies along the plain. His smoking horses at their utmost speed, he lashes on and urges o'er the dead. Their fetlocks run with blood, and when they bound, the gore and gathering dust are dashed around. Thamyris and Pholus, masters of war, he killed at a hand by Sthenelus of war. From four the sons of Imbracus he slew, Glaucus and Latus of the Lycian crew, both taught to fight on foot and battle joined, or mount the coursers that outstrips the wind. Meantime Æneid mounting in the field, the new fired the Trojans and their foes repelled. The son of Dolon bore his grandsire's name, but emulated more his father's fame. His guileful father sent a nightly spy, the Grecian camp and order to descry. Hard enterprise and well he might require, Achilles' gore and horses for his hire. But met upon the scout the Aetolian prince, in death bestowed a juster recompense. Fierce Turnus viewed the Trojan from afar, and launched his javelin from his lofty core. Then lightly leaping down pursued the blow, and pressing with his foot his prostrate foe, wrenched from his feeble hold the shining sword, and plunged it in the bosom of its lord. Possess, said he, the fruit of all thy pains, and measure at thy strength o'er Latian plains. Thus are my foes rewarded by my hand, thus may they build their town, and thus enjoy the land. Then Darius, Bootes, Sybaris he slew, whom o'er his neck his floundering courser threw, as when loud Boreas with his blustering train stoops from above incumbent on the main. Wherever he flies he drives the rack before, and rolls the billows on the Aegean shore. So where resistless Turnus takes his course, the scattered squadrons bent before his force. His crest of horses' hair is blown behind by adverse air and rustlings in the wind. This haughty Vergil saw with high disdain, and as the chariot rolled along the plain, light from the ground he leapt and seized the rein. Thus hung in air he still retained his hold, the coursers frighted and their course controlled. The lance of Turnus reached him as he hung, and pierced his plated arms, but passed along, and only raised the skin. He turned and held against his threatening foe his ample shield, then called for aid, but while he cried in vain, the chariot bore him backward on the plain. He lies reversed, the victor king descends, and strikes so justly where his helmet ends. He lops the head. The Latian fields are drunk with streams that issue from the bleeding trunk. While he triumphs, and while the Trojans yield, the wounded prince is forced to leave the field. Strong Menestheus and Achates often tried, and young Ascanius weeping by his side, conduct him to his tent. Scarce can he rear his limbs from earth supported on his spear. Resolved in mind, regardless of the smart, he tucks with both his hands and breaks the door. The steel remains, nor ready a way he found to draw the weapon, than to enlarge the wound. Eager of fight, impatient of delay, he begs, and his unwilling friends obey. Aepis was at hand to prove his ore, whose blooming youth so fired Apollo's horde, that for his love he proffered to bestow his tuneful harp and his unerring bow. The pious youth, more studious how to save his aged sire, now sinking to the grave, preferred the power of plants and silent praise of healing arts before Theban base. Propped on his lance the pensive hero stood, and heard and saw unmoved the mourning crowd. The famed physician tucks his ropes around, with ready hands and hasten to the wound. With gentle touches he performs his part, this way and that soliciting the door, and exercise all his heavenly art. All softening simples known of sovereign use, he pressed out and pours their noble juice. These first to lenify the pain, he tucks with pincers, but he tucks in vain. Then to the patron of his art he prayed. The patron of his art refused his aid. Meantime, the war approaches to the tents. The alarm grows harder and the noise augments. The driving dust proclaims the danger near, and first their friends and then their foes appear. Their friends retreat, their foes pursue the rear. The camp is filled with terror and affright, the hissing shafts within the trench alight. An undistinguished noise ascends in the sky, the shouts those who kill and groans of those who die. But now the goddess mother, moved with grief and pierced with pity, hastens her relief. A branch of healing dittany she brought, which in the Cretan fields with care she sought. Rough is the stern which only leaves surround, the leaves with flowers, the flowers with purple crown. Well known to wounded goats, a sure relief to draw the pointed steel and ease the grief. This Venus brings in clouds involved, and brews the extracted liquor with ambrosian dews, and odorous panacea. Unseen she stands, tempering the mixture with her heavenly hands, and pours it in a bowl already crowned with juice of medicinal herbs prepared to bait the wound. The leech, unknowing of superior ore, which aids the cure, with this foments the poor, and in a moment ceased the raging smore. Stanched is the blood, and in the bottom stands the steel, but scarcely touched with tender hands, moves up and follows of its own accord, and health and vigor are at once restored. Iapis first perceived the closing wound, and first the footsteps of a god he found. Arms, arms, he cries, the sword and shield prepare, and send the willing chief renewed to war. This is no mortal work, no cure of mine, nor art's effect, but done by hands divine. Some god or general to the battle sends, some god preserves his life for greater ends. The hero arms in haste, his hands enfold his thighs with cushions of refulgent gold. Inflamed to fight and rushing to the field, that hand sustaining the celestial shield, this gripes the lance, and with such vigor shakes, that to the rest the beamy weapon quakes. Then with a close embrace he strained his son, and kissing through his helmet thus begun. My son, from my example learn to war, in camps to suffer, and in fields to dare. But happier chance than mine attend thy care. This day my hand thy tender age shall shield, and crown with honors of the conquered field. Thou, when thy riper years shall send thee forth to toils of war, be mindful of my worth. Assert thy birthright, and in arms be known for Hector's nephew and Aeneas' son, he said, and striding issue on the plain, and Zeus and Menestus and a numerous train attends his step, the rest their weapons take, and crowding to the field the camp forsake. A cloud of blinding dust is raised around, labors beneath their feet the trembling ground. Now Turnus, posted on a hill from fore, beheld the progress of the moving war. With him the Latins viewed the covered plains, and the chill blood ran backward in their veins. Juturna saw the advancing troops appear, and heard the hostile sound and fled for fear. Aeneas leads and draws a sweeping train, closed in their ranks and pouring on the plain, as when a whirlwind rushing to the shore from the mid-ocean drives the waves before. The painful hint with a heavy heart foresees the flatted fields and slaughter of the trees. With like impetuous rage the prince appears, before his double front nor less destruction bears. And now both armies shock in open field. Osiris by strong Thrymbreus killed. Arcadius, Euphens, Apollon are slain, all faint in arms and of the legion train, by Gyas, Menestus, and Arcades' hand. The fatal Augur falls, by whose command the truce was broken, and whose lance embrued with Trojan blood the unhappy fight renewed. Loud shouts and clamors rent the liquid sky, and o'er the field the frighted Latins fly. The prince disdains the dastards to pursue, nor moves to meet in arms the fighting few. Turnus, alone amid the dusky plain, he seeks, and to the combat calls in vain. Juturna heard, and seized with mortal fear, forced from the beam her brother's charioteer, assumes his shape, his armor, and his mien, and, like Metiscus, in his seat is seen. As the black swallow near the palace plies, o'er empty courts and under arches flies. Now hawks aloft, now skims along the flood, to furnish her loquacious nest with food. So drives the rapid goddess o'er the plains, the smoking horses run with loosened reins. She steers a various course among the foes, now here, now there her conquering brother shows. Now with a straight, now with a wheeling flight, she turns and bends, but shuns the single fight. Aeneas, fired with fury, breaks the crowd, and seeks his foe and calls by name aloud. He runs with an arrow ring and tries to stop the chariot, but the chariot flies. If he but gain a glimpse, Juturna fears, and far away the Daunian hero bears. What should he do? No arts, no arms avail, and various cares in vain his mind assail. The great Messapus thundering to the field, that in his left hand 2-pointed javelins held. Encountering on the prince one dart he drew, and with unerring aim and utmost vigor threw. Aeneas saw it come, and stooping low, beneath his buckler shunned the threatening blow. The weapon hissed above his head, and tore the waving plume which on his helm he wore. Forced by this hostile act and fired with spite, that flying Turnus still declined the fight. The prince, whose piety had long repelled his inborn order, now invades the field, invokes the powers of violated peace, their rights and injured altars to redress. Then, to his rage abandoning the rein, with blood and slaughtered bodies fills the plain. What God can tell, what numbers can display the various labors of that fatal day? What chiefs and champions fell on either side, in combat slain, or by what death they died? Whom Turnus, whom the Trojan hero killed, who shared the fame and fortune of the field. Jove, couldst thou view and not avert thy sight, two warring nations joined in cruel fight, whom leagues of lasting love so shortly shall unite. Aeneas first Rutulian succour found, whose valor made the Trojans quit their ground. Betwixt his ribs the javelin drove so just, it reached his heart, nor needs a second thrust. Now Turnus at two blows two brethren slew. First from his horse fierce Amycus he threw. Then, leaping on the ground on foot assailed, Diores, and in equal fight prevailed. Their lifeless trunks he leaves upon the place, their heads they still in gore his chariot grace. 3 cold on earth the Trojan hero threw, whom without respite at one charge he slew. Cethegus Tanais, Tegus fell oppressed, and sad Anytus added to the rest of Theban blood, whom Peridia bore. Turnus, 2 brothers from the Lycian shore, and from Apollo's fane to battle sent, overthrew, nor Phoebus could their fate prevent. Peaceful Minutus after these he killed, who long had shunned the dangers of the field. On Lerna's lake a silent life he led, and with his nets and ankle earned his bread. Nor pompous cares, nor palaces he knew, but wisely from the infectious world withdrew. Poor was his house, his father's painful hand discharged his rent, and plowed another's land. As flames among the lofty woods are thrown, on different sides and both with winds are blown, the laurels crackle in the sputtering fire, the frighted sylvans from their shades retire, or as the 2 neighboring torrents fall from high, rapid they run, the foamy waters fry. They roll to sea with unresisted force, and down the rocks precipitate their course. Not with less rage the rival hero take their different ways, nor less destruction make. With spears afore, with swords at hand they strike, and seal of slaughter fires their souls alike. Like them their dauntless men maintain the field, and hearts are pierced unknowing how to yield. They blow for blow return, and wound for wound, and heaps of bodies race the level ground. Muranus, boasting of his blood that springs from a long royal race of Latian kings, is by the Trojan from his chariot thrown, crushed with the weight of an unwieldy stone. Betwixt the wheels he fell, the wheels that bore his living load, his dying body tore. His starting steeds to shun the glittering sword, pour down his trampled limbs, forgetful of their lord. Fierce Hyllus threatened high, and face to face affronted Turnus in the middle space. The prince encountered him in full career, and at his temples aimed the deadly spear. So fatally the flying weapon spat, that through his helm it pierced his head. Nor scissors couldst thou escape from Turnus' hand, in vain the strongest of the Arcadian band. Nor to Cupentus could his gods afford, availing against the Aenean sword, which to his naked horde pursued the course, nor could his plated shield sustain the force. Iolaus fell, whom not the Grecian powers, nor great subverter of the Trojan towers, were doomed to kill, while heaven prolonged his date. But who can pass the bounds prefixed by fate? In high Lyrnessus and in Troy he held 2 palaces, and was from each expelled. Of all the mighty man the last remains, a little spot of foreign earth contains. And now both hosts, their broken troops united in equal ranks and mix in mortal fight. Cerastus and undaunted Menestus join the Trojan, Tuscan, and Arcadian line. Sea-born Messapus with Aeneas heads the Latin squadrons into the battle lets. They strike, they push, they throng the scanty space, resolved on death, impatient of disgrace. And where one falls, another fills his place. The Cyprian goddess now inspires her son to leave the unfinished fight and storm the town. For while he rolls his eyes around the plain in quest of Turnus, whom he seeks in vain, he views the unguarded city from afar, in careless quiet and secure of war. Occasion offers and excites his mind to dare beyond the task he first designed. Resolved, he calls his chief, they lead the fight. Attended thus, he takes a neighboring height. The crowding troops about their general stand, all unto arms and wait his high command. Then thus the lofty prince, hear and obey, ye Trojan bands, without the least delay. Jove is with us, and what I have decreed requires our utmost vigor and our speed. Your instant arms against the town prepare, the source of mischief and the seat of war. This day the Latian towers that make the sky shall level with the plain in ashes lie. The people shall be slaves unless in time they kneel for pardon and repent their crime. Twice have our foes been vanquished on the plain. Then shall I wait till Turnus will be slain. Your force against the perjured city bent. There it began, and there the war shall end. The peace profaned or rightful arms requires. Cleanse the polluted place with purging fires. He finished, and one soul inspiring all, formed in a wedge, the foot approached the wall. Without the town, an unprovided train of gaping, gazing citizens are slain. Some firebrands, others scaling ladders, bear, and those they toss aloft, and these they rear. The flames now launch, the feathered arrows fly, and clouds of missive arms obscure the sky. Advancing to the front, the hero stands, and stretching out to heaven his pious hands, attests the gods, assert his innocence, upbraids with breach of faith the Ausonian prince, declares the royal honor doubly stained, and twice the rites of holy peace profaned. Dissenting clamors in the town arise. Each will be heard, and all at once advise. One port for peace and one for war contends. Some would exclude their foes, and some admit their friends. The helpless king is hurried in the throng, and whatever tide prevails is borne along. Thus, when the swain within a hollow rock invades the beast with suffocating smoke, they run around or labor on their wings, disused to fight and shoot their sleepy stings. To shun the bitter fumes in vain they try, black vapors issuing from the vent involve the sky. But fate and envious fortune now prepare to plunge the late Latins in the last despair. The queen, who saw the foes invade the town, and brands on troops of burning houses thrown, cast around her eyes, distracted with her fear. No troops of Turnus in the field appear. Once more she stares abroad, but still in vain, and then concludes the royal youth is slain. Mad with her anguish, impotent to bear the mighty grief, she loathes the vital air. She calls herself the cause of all things ill, and owns the dire effects of her ungoverned will. She raves against the gods, she beats her breast, she tears with both her hands her purple vest. Then round the beam of running noose she tied, and fastened by the neck, obscenely died. Soon as the fatal news by fame was blown, and to her dames and to her daughter known, the sad Lavinia rents her yellow hair, and rosy cheeks the rest her sorrow share. With shrieks the palace rings, and madness of despair, the spreading rumor fills the public place. Confusion, fear, distraction, and disgrace, and silent shame are seen in every face. Latinus tears his garments as he goes, both for his public and his private woes. With filth his venerable beard besmears, and sordid dust deforms his silver hairs. And much he blames the softness of his mind, obnoxious to the charms of womankind. and soon seduced to chance what he so well designed, to break the solemn league so long desired, nor finish what his fates and those of Troy required. Now Turnus rolls aloof over empty plains, and here and there some straggling foes he gleans. His flying coursers please him less and less, ashamed of easy fight and cheap success. Thus half contented, anxious in his mind, the distant cries come driving in the wind. Shouts from the walls, but shouts and murmurs drowned, a jarring mixture and a boding sound. Alas, said he, what means these dismal cries? What doleful clamors from the town arise? Confused, he stops and backward pulls the reins. She who the driver's office now sustains replies, neglect, my lord, these new alarms. Here fight and urge the fortune of your horns. There want not others to defend the wall. If by your rival's hand the Italians fall, so shall your fatal sword his friends oppress, in honor equal in success. To this the prince, O sister, for I knew the peace infringed proceeding first from you. I knew you when you mingled first in fight, and now in vain you would deceive my sight. Why, goddess, this unprofitable care? Who sent you down from heaven, involved in air, your share of mortal sorrows to sustain, and see your brother bleeding on the plain? For to what power can Turnus have recourse, or how resist his fate's prevailing force? These eyes beheld Muanus bite the ground, mighty the man and mighty was the wound. I heard my dearest friend with dying breath, my name invoking to revenge his death. Brave youths fell with honor on the place, to shun the shameful sight of my disgrace. On earth supine, a manly corpse, he lies. His vest and armor are the victor's prize. Then shall I see Laurentum in a flame, which only wanted to complete my shame. How will the Latins hoot their champions' flight? How Dronchus will insult and point them to the side? Is death so hard to bear, ye gods below, since those above so small compassion show? Receive a soul unsullied yet with shame, which not bellies my great forefather's name. He sat, and while he spoke, with flying speed came sages urging on his foamy steed. Fixed on his wounded face a shaft he bore, and, seeking Turnus, sent his voice before. Turnus, on you alone depends our last relief, compassionate your friends. Like lightning, fierce Aeneas rolling on, with arms invested with flames invades the town. The brands are tossed on high, the winds conspire to drive along the deluge of the fire. All eyes are fixed on you. Your foes rejoice. Even the king staggers and suspends his choice. Doubts to deliver or defend the town, whom to reject or whom to call his son. The queen on whom your utmost hopes we placed, herself suborning death, has breathed her last. 'Tis true, Messapus, fearless of his fate, with fierce Aeneas aid defends the gate. On every side surrounded by the foe, the more they kill, the greater numbers grow. An iron horde is mountains, and still remains to mow. You far aloof from your forsaken bands, your rolling chariot dried or empty. Stupid, he said, his eyes on earth declined, and various cares revolving in his mind. Rage boiling from the bottom of his breast, and sorrow mixed with shame his soul oppressed. And conscious worth lay laboring in his thought, and love by jealousy to madness wrought. By slow degrees his reason drove away the mists of passion and resumed her sway. Then rising on his core, he turned his look and saw the town involved in fire and smoke. A wooden tower with flames already blazed, which his own hands on beams and rafters raised, and bridges laid above to join the space, and wheels below to roll from place to place. Sister, the fates have vanquished, let us go the way which heaven and my heart fortune show. The fight is fixed, nor shall the branded name of a base coward blot your brother's fame. Death is my choice, but suffer me to try my force and vent my rage before I die, he said, and leaping down without delay through crowds of scattered foes, he freed his way. Striding, he passed, impetuous as the wind, and left the grieving goddess far behind. As when a fragment from a mountain torn by raging tempest or by torrents born, or sapped by time or loosened from the roots, prone through the void the rocky ruin shoots, rolling from crack to crack, from steep to steep, down sink at once the shepherds and their sheep. Involved alike they rush to nether ground, stunned with the shock they fall, and stunned from earth rebound. So Turnus, hasting headlong to the town, shouldering and shoving, bore the squadrons down. Still pressing onward to the walls he drew, where shafts and spears and darts promiscuous flew. and sanguine streams the slippery ground imbrue. First stretching out his arm in sign of peace, he cries aloud to make the combat cease. Rutulians hold, and Latin troops retire. The fight is mine, and me the gods require. 'Tis just that I should vindicate alone the broken truce, or for the breach atone. This day shall free from wars the Ausonian state, or finish my misfortunes and my fate. Both armies from the bloody work desist, and bearing backward form a spacious list. The Trojan hero who received from fame the welcome sound and heard the champion's name, soon leaves the taken works and mounted walls, greedy of all who a greater glory calls. He springs to fight, exulting in his force. His jointed armor rattles in the course. Like Æneid or like Athos, great he shows, or Father Apennine when, white with snows, his head divine obscure in clouds he hides, and shakes the sounding forest on his sides. The nations overlord surcease the fight. Immovable their bodies, fixed their sight. Even death stands still, nor from above they throw their thoughts, nor drive their battering rams below. In silent order either army stands, and drop their swords unknowing from their hands. The Ausonian king beholds with wondering sight two mighty champions matched in single fight. Born on the climes remote and brought by fate, with swords to try their titles to the state. Now in closed field, each other from afar, they view, and rushing on begin the war. They launch their spears, then hand to hand they meet. The trembling soul resounds beneath their feet. Their bucklers clash, thick blows descend from high, and flakes of fire from their helmets fly. Courage conspires with chance, and both engage with equal fortune yet and mutual rage. As when two bulls for their fair female fight, in sealess shades or at Taburnus height, with horns at burst they meet, the keeper flies. Mute stands the herd, the heedfuls roll their eyes. and wait the event, which victor they shall bear, and who shall be the Lord to rule the lusty year. With rage of love the jealous rivals burn, and push for push and wound for wound return. Their dewlaps gore, their sides are laved in blood. Loud cries and roaring sounds rebel through the wood. Such was the combat in the listed ground. So clash their swords, and so their shields resound. Jove sets the beam, in either scale he lays the champion's fate, and each exactly weighs. On this side life and lucky chance ascends, loaded with death that other scale descends. Raised on the stretch, young Turnus aims a blow full on the helm of his unguarded foe. Shrill shouts and clamors ring on either side, as hopes and fears their panting hordes divide. But all in pieces flies the traitor's sword, and in the middle stroke deserts his lord. Now is but death or flight, disarmed he flies, when in his hand an unknown hilt he spies. Fame says that Turnus, when his steeds he joined, hurrying to war, disorder in his mind, snatched the first weapon which his haste could find. 'Twas not the fated sword his father bore, but that his charioteer Metiscus wore. This while the Trojans fled the toughness held, but vain against the great Vulcanian shield. The mortal-tempered steel deceived his hand, the shivered fragments shone amid the sand. Surprised with fear, he fled along the field, and now forthright, and now in orbits wheeled. For here the Trojan troops the list surround, and there the pass is closed with pools and marshy ground. Aeneas hastens, though with heavier pace, his wound so newly knit retorts the chase, and oft his trembling knees their aid refuse, yet pressing foot by foot his foe pursues. Thus when a fearful stack is closed around, with crimson tool so in a river found, high on the bank the deep mouth that hound appears, still opening, following still wherever he steers. The persecuted creature to and fro turns here and there to escape his Umbrian foe. Steep is the ascent, and if he gains the land, the purple depth is pitched along the strand. His eager foe determined to the chase, stretched at his length, gains ground at every pace. Now to his beamy head he makes his way, and now he holds, or think he holds, his prey. Just at the pinch, the stag springs up with fear. He bites the wind and fills his sounding jaws with air. The rocks and the lakes, the meadows ring with cries. The mortal tumult mountains and thunders in the skies. Thus flies the Daunian prince, and flying blames his 20 troops, and calling by their names, demands his trusty sword. The Trojan threats the realm with ruin, and their ancient seats to lay in ashes if they dare supply with arms or aid his vanquished enemy. Thus menacing, he still pursues the course, with vigor though diminished of his force. 10 times already round the listed place, one chief had fled, and the other given the chase. No trivial prize is played, for on the life or death or Turnus now depends the strife. Within the space an olive tree had stood, a sacred shade, a venerable wood, for vows to Faunus paid, the Latins' guardian god. Here hung the vests and tablets engraved of sinking mariners from shipwreck saved. With heedless hands the Trojans felled the tree, to make the ground enclosed for combat free. Deep in the root, whether by fate or chance, or erring haste, the Trojan drove his lance. Then stooped and tucked with force immense, to free the encumbered spear from the tenacious tree. That whom his fainting limbs pursued in vain, his flying weapon might from far attain. Confused with fear, bereft of human aid, then Turnus to the gods, and first to Faunus prayed. O Faunus, pity, and thou Mother Earth, where I thy foster son received my birth. Hold fast the steel, if my religious hand your plant has honored, which your foes profane. Propitious, hear my pious prayer, he said, nor with successless vows invoke their aid. The incumbent hero wretched and pulled and strained, but still the stubborn earth the steel detained. Juturna took her time, and, while in vain he strove, assumed Meticus' form again, and in that imitated shape restored to the despairing prince his Daunian sword. The queen of love, who with disdain and grief saw the bold nymph afford this prompt relief, to assert her offspring with a greater deed, from the tough root the lingering weapon freed. Once more erect the rival chiefs advance, one thrust the sword and one the pointed lance, and both resolved alike to try their fatal chance. Meantime imperial Jove to Juno spoke, who from a shining cloud beheld the shock. What new arrest, O Queen of Heaven, is sent to stop the fates now laboring in the event? What farther hopes are left thee to pursue, divine Æneid, and thou knowest it too? Foredoomed to these celestial seats ordained, what more attempts for Turnus can be made? that thus thou lingerest in this lonely shade? Is it becoming of the due respect and awful honor of a God elect, a wound unworthy of our state to feel, patient of human hands and earthly steel? Or seems it just the sister should restore a second sword when one was lost before, and arm a conquered wretch against his conqueror? For what without thy knowledge and avowal, nay more thy dictate durst to undo? At last in defense to my love forbear to lodge within thy soul this anxious care. Recline upon my breast thy grief unload. Who should relieve the goddess but the god? Now all things to their utmost issue tend, pushed by the fates to their appointed end. While leave was given thee in a lawful hour for vengeance, wrath, and unresisted power. Tossed on the seas thou couldst thy foes distress, and driven ashore with hostile arms oppress. Deform the royal house, and from the side of the just bridegroom tear the plighted bride. Now cease at my command the thunder set, and with dejected eyes this answer Juno made. Because your dread decree too well I knew, from Turnus and from earth unwilling I withdrew. Else should you not behold me here alone, involved in empty clouds my friends bemoan, but girt with vengeful flames and open sight, engaged against my foes in mortal fight. 'Tis true, Juturna mingled in the strife, by my command to save her brother's life, at least to try, but by the Stygian lake, the most religious oath the gods can take, with this restriction, not to bend the bow, or toss the spear, or trampling dart to throw. And now resigned to your superior might, and tired with fruitless toils, I loathe the fight. This let me back, and this no fates withstand, both for myself and for your father's land, that when the nuptial bed shall bind the peace, which I, since you ordain, consent to bless, the laws of either nation be the same, but let the Latins still retain their name. Speak the same language which they spoke before, wear the same habits which their grandsires wore. Call them not Trojans, perish the renown and name of Troy with that detested town. Latium be Latium still, let Alba reign, and Rome's immortal majesty remain. Then thus the founder of mankind replies. Unruffled was his front, serene his eyes. Can Saturn's issue and heaven's other air such endless anger in her bosom bear? Be mistress, and your full desires obtain, but quench the choler you foment in vain. From ancient blood the Ausonian people sprung, shall keep their name, their habit, and their tongue. The Trojans to their customs shall be tied, or sight on you when traversing the skies, and drenched in poisonous juice the sure destruction flies. With such a sudden and unseen a flight, shot through the clouds the daughters of the night. Soon as the field enclosed she had in view, and from afar her destined quarry knew. Contracted to the boding bird she turns, which haunt the ruined piles and hallowed urns, and beats about the tombs with nightly wings, where songs obscene on sepulchres she sings. Thus lessened in her form, with frightful cries, the fury round unhappy Turnus flies, flaps on his shield and flutters o'er his eyes. A lazy chillness crept along his blood, choked was his voice, his hair where horror stood. Yet Turner from afar beheld her fly, and knew the ill omen by her screaming cry, and stride of her wings. Amazed with fear, her beauteous breast she beat and rent her flowing hair. Ah me, she cries, in this unequal strife, what can thy sister more to save thy life? Weak as I am, can I, alas, content in arms with that inexorable fiend? Now I quit the field, forbear to fright my tender soul, ye baleful birds of night. The lashing of your wings I know too well, the sounding flight and funeral screams of hell. These are the gifts you bring from haughty Jove, the worthy recompense of ravished love. Did he for this exempt my life from fate? O horrid conditions of immortal state! Though born to death, not privileged to die, but forced to bear imposed eternity. Take back your envious bribes and let me go, companion to my brother's ghost below. The joys are vanished, nothing now remains of life immortal, but immortal pains. What earth will open her devouring womb to rest the weary goddess in the tomb? She drew a length of sighs, no more she said, but in her azure mantle wrapped her head, then plunged into her stream with deep despair, and her last sobs came bubbling up in air. Now stern Æneid his weighty spear against his foe, and thus upbraids his fear. What farther subterfuge can Turnus find? What empty hopes or harbored in his mind? 'Tis not thy swiftness can secure thy flight, not with their feet but hands the valiant fight. Vary thy shape in thousand forms and dare what skill and courage can attempt in war. Wish for the wings of winds to mount the sky, or hid within the hollow earth to lie. The champion shook his head and made this short reply: no threats of thine my manly mind can move. 'Tis hostile heaven I dread, and partial Jove. He said no more, but with a sigh repressed the mighty sorrow in his swelling breast. Then, as he rolled his troubled eyes around, an antique stone he saw the common bound of neighboring fields and barrier of the ground, so vast that 12 strong men of modern days the enormous weight from earth could hardly raise. He heaved it at a lift, and, poised on high, ran staggering on against his enemy, but so disordered that he scarcely knew his way or what unwieldy weight he threw. His knocking knees are bent beneath the load, and shivering cold congeals his vital blood. The stone drops from his arms and, falling short for want of vigor, mocks his vain effort. And as, when heavy sleep has closed the sight, the sickly fancy labors in the night, we seem to run, and destitute of force, our sinking limbs forsakes us in the course. In vain we heave for breath, in vain we cry. The nerves, unbraced, their usual strength deny, and on the tongue the faltering accents die. So Turnus fared, whatever means he tried. All force of arms and points of art employed. The fury flew athwart and made the endeavor void. 1,000 various thoughts his soul confound. He stared about, nor aid nor issue found. His own men stop the pass, and his own walls surround. Once more he pauses and looks out again, and seeks the goddess charioteer in vain. Trembling he views the thundering chief advance, and brandishing aloft the deadly lance. Amazed he cowers beneath his conquering foe, forgets to ward, and waits the coming blow. Astonished while he stands and fixed with fear, aimed at his shield, he sees the impending spear. The hero measured first with narrow view the destined mark, and rising as he threw, with its full swing the fatal weapon flew. Not with less rage than rattling thunder falls, or stones from battering engines break the walls. Swift as a whirlwind from an arm so strong, the lance drove on and bore the death along. Nor could his sevenfold shield the prince avail, nor aught beneath his arms the coat of mail. It pierced through all, and with a grisly wound transfixed his thighs and toppled him to ground. With groans the Latins rent the vaulted sky. Woods, hills, and valleys to the voice reply. Now, low on earth, the lofty chief is laid, with eyes cast upward and with arms displayed, and recreant thus to the proud victor prayed. I know my death deserved, nor hope to live. Use what the gods and thy good fortune give. Yet think, oh think, if mercy may be shown. Thou hadst a father once, and hast a son. Pity my sire, now sinking to the grave, and for Anchises' sake, old Daunus save. Or, if thy vowed revenge pursue my death, give to my friends my body void of breath. The Latian chiefs have seen me back my life. Thine is the conquest, thine the royal wife. Against a yielded man, 'tis mean ignoble strife. In deep suspense the Trojan seemed to stand, and, just prepared to strike, repressed his hand. He rolled his eyes, and every moment felt his manly soul with more compassion melt, when, casting down a casual glance, he spied the golden belt that glittered on his side. The fatal spoils which haughty Turnus tore from dying Pallas, and in triumph wore. Then roused anew to wrath, he loudly cries. Flames, while he spoke, came flashing from his eyes. Traitor, dost thou to grace pretend, clad as thou art in trophies of my friend? To his sad soul a grateful offering go. 'Tis Pallas gives this deadly blow. He raised his arm aloft, and at the word, deep in his bosom drew the shining sword. The streaming blood distained his arms around, and this disdainful soul came rushing to the wound.